I'd like to bring up to the stage AFS's Artistic Director, Richard Linklater. Thanks, Lars. The amazing thing about this, I think after I pounded the table, I'd probably never really, not a table. But the amazing thing is that we could find a print that Lars could track down. When you got back and said, there's a print of Ticket of No Return, I said, really? Because this is the one that I thought would be very difficult to find. So this is very representative, especially in the early days. You know, we showed, I mean, whatever we could get our hands on that sounded crazy. I had seen this probably in '84 or '85 on the UT campus, back when they used to show 5 films a weekend or whatever, the good old days. But, and it was this bizarre film. And so we showed it 3 years later in the spring of '88. I said, well, let's show that. We were doing a series called The Front Line, kind of avant-garde, and I just really wanted to see it again. And here all these years later, I really want to see it again because I was trying to explain this film and I don't even remember, I remember a lot of specific images, but I could be so wrong. I was telling people like, well, there's no dialogue. And then I started thinking, well, no, there's dialogue. But I think the main woman in the movie, another title for the movie is Portrait of a Woman Drinker. I don't think I imagined that. It's always Ticket of No Return, but I remember kind of a parenthetical. Maybe I made it up, I don't know. But we'll find out. But she just kind of goes to Berlin and walks around drinking the whole time. She doesn't say anything. I could be wrong, I don't know. It's like a Tati film or something. But I thought, this is gonna be my shortest intro ever, because I really don't have a lot to say about the movie other than I really wanted to see it again. Really want to, and I invite you guys to just let this wash over you. I think, you know, it's a kind of avant-garde feature that was hip in the 70s. This came out in '79 in Germany, didn't start showing in the US till the 80s. But, you know, not a lot of narrative, kind of probably in the performance art, a little bit of performance art influence, or maybe it's a kind of a performance piece, but it's definitely cinema, and it's definitely invigorating. So I just look forward to revisiting some of these images, so many that I've had in my brain all these years from seeing this. So we'll talk after, and we're gonna just have a discussion on what the hell we just saw. But enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, as I remember. Okay. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk after. Okay. Man, I didn't drink.
I was gonna, when you do these, you like thinking, oh, what's the first thing I'm gonna say? So we both kind of had some of the, it's like it's picked the wrong day to stop drinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, it's so funny how a film stays in your memory and things you remember so vividly and things that you miss. I'd completely forgotten the little Greek chorus of the 3. That's like such a huge element of the movie. It's just, oh yeah, those 3. That was so cool. And I had forgotten, like, in my mind, she never felt the effects of the alcohol. Like, she seemed, in my mind, seeing this, oh yeah, she hits that point. And to me, the film tonight just seems like, oh, it's kind of like being on a big alcohol bit. Like, it's really fun. Even the humor of the movie, it's kind of front-loaded, right? Like a good, you know, alcoholic binge or whatever. It's fun until it isn't, you know?
Right.
And then the film kind of felt that way. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of, in her costumes get a little, by the end, I don't know. I've forgotten all that.
What else were you struck by this time?
Wow, I had forgotten it was kind of the rat hole of Berlin. You know, and I thought, Berlin, wow, such a, you know, unique city. And I thought, oh yeah, this is the underbelly, largely. It's not famous, the clean, glamorous. It's like, oh yeah, it's the industrial section. But I love that. You know, with those costumes she's wearing in that kind of grungy ass world. So, I don't know. It's a real vision. I don't know. I was super impressed, and beautiful print. I mean, it's so. Rest assured, we're the only people on planet Earth right now tonight who watch this.
Oh yeah.
35 millimeter. Felt very special.
At one point when I got up to go out, somebody had came up to me and said, "Oh, I think it's out of focus." It's like, yeah, no, it was shot that way.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like there was no, I think they would set the camera, and then like no matter how people moved, nobody was actually pulling focus during the shot, probably.
Yeah, from the very beginning when she's following the plane. I mean, it's kind of a super low budget art film. I mean, she shot it herself, she did that, but I think within that, the design of it is really unique. I love it. And I'd forgotten, I think when I first went, the first time I saw it, I saw the credits and I saw Nina Hagen was in it. Do you guys remember Nina Hagen? So great, you know, the 80s. I think I went to see her because I was a big fan. And she's the lady sitting on the piano, playing it with her heels and sings that great bit. She was amazing. And I don't know if she's still making music. I haven't heard much lately, but I really loved her then. And a couple Fassbinder, clearly there's some Fassbinder people in it.
Eddie Constantine.
Yeah, there's Eddie.
Peter Rabe.
Kurt
Rabe.
Robb.
Right.
He's that boss who she throws all the papers. He's a Fassbinder regular, as is Volker Spengler a little bit later, the drag queen that gets thrown out of the car there, is kind of crying all the time. I think that's an homage to a film he had done like a year before this with Fassbinder, Year of 13 Moons. I think it feels like almost the same character. I don't know if she's commenting on that or what. But.
Humor went crazy in Germany, like in the 70s. Like there's stuff, we weren't just Fassbinder stuff, it's such like a
People
next level
think Germans aren't funny. I never got that. I don't know if they're like stand-up comedian funny, but they're funny. I mean, there's like this kind of thing always. I've always appreciated it. I've always thought they're pretty hilarious. I mean, there's not that huge generalization, but Fassbinder's funny, this is hilarious. I don't know, I just like the humor in the cinema.
It's a humor that's willing to go like real dark and real deep.
Yeah.
And pull it out of there, which is appropriate.
Well, think of people of this generation, like Ulrike Ottinger. She's probably born in the 40s, so she's a little kid post-war. So look at the world they're growing up in. You know, so I think that their only reaction to that was to find this biting, you know, kind of humor to their world. You know.
I think she was born in 42.
Yeah.
But you can imagine what that was like to.
Yeah, so that's someone who wouldn't remember the war, but would certainly remember the aftermath and what that was like.
For ordinary Germans, I'm sure the post-war period was like a really hard life, where you had to kind of find your humor where you could find it.
Yeah, and I think that that guilt too of realizing, oh, your parents and grandparents kind of participated in that to whatever degree. But how quick Germany actually came back, you know, Fassbinder, Marriage of Maria Brown, you know, that's what it's really about. Like Germany is war-torn and destroyed as they were. In 10 years, they were a world economic power. I mean, they came back like that.
So we'd like to open the floor for discussion. And we have a great sponsor, University of Texas Press, that has given us some books. This is one that we haven't given away yet, which is The Solaris Effect. Art and Artifice in Contemporary American Film by Stephen Dillon. I haven't read this one yet, but everything that I've read on UT Press has been terrific.
I like that, the Solaris Effect.
Solaris Effect, yes.
Like the Tarkovsky effect? Is that what it's implying?
You can read the book before we give it away.
Can I just keep this?
So we're gonna whoever. It's not like whoever asked the best question, but somehow we'll figure out a way to give this book away to some wonderful person here in the audience. So I wonder if anybody here has any, not only questions, but or contributions or observations about the film. Right over here, yeah.
Something really small, we were talking about the cast, and the guy, the director, Willie director, who buys them the drinks, I'm like 95% sure that's Slugworth from Willy Wonka.
Is it? They go on that walk that, It's like
it's a little highbrow for me.
You gotta check
Okay, there's a general agreement in the audience that that's Slugworth, and as soon as
if it isn't,
somebody
it should
invents a
have
computer that we can look that on, we'll find that out. I wonder if anybody else has any contributions. So that was a killer to start with. I see one all the way in the back.
Yeah, I noticed the dwarf character was a Werner Herzog actor Even Door Stars.
From Even Door
Stars.
Stars.
Yeah. And then that call to Eisenstein at the end, the Odessa steps, like that was pretty cool. Like that.
Yeah, she even uses the name, and I mean, instead of, gets not shot, but trampled, I guess, on the steps.
Do you suppose there are more like Odessa steps callbacks in films, or more like rising no trespassing sign, like up the fence, Citizen Kane callbacks in films.
Close one.
Is there like a third
Odessa
one?
steps, yeah, stand out more. They're more obvious, I guess. But,
You see a lot of, those are like the two kind of big callbacks that you see, like the two big references that you see in films, I think.
yeah,
Maybe the Hall of Mirrors
hard to
also.
resist. Yeah, that's a great last Hall of Mirrors shot. That heel going through.
Hey there, right over here.
One of the thing that I was sort of thinking about through the whole movie was I was trying to figure out, is it really a movie about drinking, or is drinking just a unifying motif?
Boy, I mean, I think they're taking on drinking. I mean, that's so much, a high percentage of the dialogue is specifics about drinking, you know, stats and stuff. So, but is it about drinking? I don't know.
Yeah, what's
What
up
do you
with
guys
that?
think? I mean,
Is it actually about drinking, or is it sort of drinking is sort of
what's
like
the
a prism
attitude
for like
toward
social?
drinking? Yeah, what's the metaphor? Anybody, feel free to jump in here.
I don't want to turn this into an AA meeting, but as a recovering alcoholic on a full-on relapse at the moment,
Oh,
I have never found a film so relatable, and I understood every second of that film. I felt like the entire time the directors and the writers knew exactly the experience of having two different, the inner self and the outer self, the person you think you're presenting and the person that you are actually presenting in reality, and having these three like rods of reality following you around, whether you're like paying attention to them, ignoring them, or having a conversation, offering them a drink. I found that all to be very, very realistic in the experience.
There you go.
what were the three? What were the three ladies' names? Does anyone remember? One was like
Statistics, social questions.
Common Sense was one of them.
Which I
And
think
then
Common
there's
Sense was the one
statistics.
that left at the end as she was climbing the stairs, and you know, towards the end she's climbing these stairs and falling down, and I think Common Sense was the first one to leave because the other two stayed.
You make your bed, you lie in it. Is that Common Sense? Oh yeah, thank you for that.
That was incredible, actually. I was
Yeah,
totally like,
yeah.
I want to watch the movie again
I
right
want
now.
to send a little shout out to my early colleague in the film study, Denise Montgomery, who's been gone, gosh, pushing 18 years or so. But she loved this movie, and I have to say, for the three people in here who might have known Dee, she's kind of like that. She's kind of like that woman, Gary Clark. But she loved this movie, and she had her own struggles with the bottle.
I think you talk about the early days of AFS, and that's a big part of what the series is. When I first was talking about this, I was saying, I looked it up, and the last time it played was 1988. And you go, oh yeah, that doomed 1988 year.
Ooh.
What happened in
It was
1988?
exhilarating, but it almost ran it. Didn't I talk about this once already? A little bit?
We briefly alluded to it.
Yeah. Well, this was part of, like I said, a series in 1988. We had our own space starting in that spring. We had gotten our first grant money, had written some grants, and suddenly we were just an organization that lived, film to film, hoping to break even. We were all volunteer for the first 10 years. No one, it wasn't about that. It was just about having enough money to show the next movie and hopefully break even after the rental and the shipping and And so started writing some grants, and we looked pretty good on paper. We had shown a lot of movies, and we got two grants, one from the city, one from the state. And we had about like $6,000 or $7,000, which was just, And we had converted our space on Quackenbush on the drag above the coffee shop. That cost, we did it so cheap, but there was an empty, it was a storage area for the coffee shop. A friend of mine worked there, and he said, hey, we're just storing boxes up there. And we were kind of looking for a space, because we were showing at the Dobie, showing at Laguna Gloria, showing wherever we could, but wouldn't it be fun to have our own Cinematheque? So Art Silver let us take over that space for free, and I said we'd get some people downstairs to buy coffee, made some, deal, I don't know. But, and I thought, well, God, we got our own space, it's free, let's show some movies. So, like, every weekend we had like, God, so many films, and we were just getting started. It was kind of like being in business. Like, you had to project 5 movies a weekend. And I just kind of went crazy. I just was so greedy for all, we did this good, I think I talked about it in the Godard series. Oh, Godard, 85 today.
Happy birthday.
So, yeah, 10 Oshima films, 7, here they came. I just kind of filled up the whole spring thinking, because we'd always kind of broken even, showing 1 film a week. And it didn't occur to me that maybe people didn't want to see 5 films a weekend. You know, they didn't want to come to the midnighter and the afternoon matinee and the Sunday thing and the Friday night thing. I did, but it was nuts. And since we were kind of at a new venue, we were just so busy. It was just so hard, and it wasn't going well. You know, like it opened okay, but then it was, you know, the numbers were not working. You know, when 20 people come to a movie and they're all paying, we're charging like $2 or $3, and the film costs $150 rental. And then of the 20 people, 10 are kind of on the guest list, you know. A small town with the big guest list. Great people though, always. But it was, yeah, I was just doing the math, like, oh no, there's a train wreck coming. Better get out the credit card. So by the very end, and when we showed this, it was glorious. I mean, it was really the most memorable section. If you look into history, you know, we have those kind of 10-year and 20-year anniversary, if you could get your hands on one. Just look at those films. You won't believe we did that in 1 semester. But I felt kind of abandoned, actually. I thought by being near UT, we would have a lot of students. Hey, we're showing 17 Godard films. You know, wouldn't the students want to come? They never. Are there any UT students here tonight? Raise your hand. See, there's so few. So few.
And did you get in free?
Did your teacher assign you to come here? Did he give you extra credit? Because that's the only way we ever got students to come.
We do have a thing called the Learn membership where students can come for free.
Yeah.
So, and even
the Ed Lowry thing.
The Ed Lowry Learn.
We always want students there, but you know, students are busy. But you know, I do remember one student coming there. I think he was a freshman, just kind of a dorky guy, but hanging out all the time. It's like, I could tell he loved movies, he was watching them. He'd come to some movies and he would just kind of like, hey, you know, do you need, when I do something? I'm like, yeah, pick up a broom, dude. You know, we're cleaning up. I would be working, he's just standing around kind of loving movies, but whatever. He typified a student for me who wasn't helping, you know. But I was a little older, you know. So I always thought over the years, you know, what happens to guys like that, you know? Guy who likes movies, but he's just too weird. At the New York Film Festival, 2001, and backstage, film about to show, and I'm introduced. I had found out I had talked to him on the phone a few times, just hadn't met him in person. Shake hands, look him in the eye. Wait. He looks at me and goes, you were the guy, and I go, look at him, go, you were that student, Wes Anderson. Yeah. We rebonded over the years. So anyway, one memorable UT student who actually did come to movies. But anyway, but we were going off the rails that semester. It was getting
It is
bad.
It is always a trick.
What I did, it was a little underhand. 2 years before, we were showing a cult film series, and we closed it out with Pasolini's Sallow, which was kind of provocative. I mean, we were sort of begging for a controversy, because that had been shut down in Houston. There had been a lot of controversy, and I think it even went to court about, it's the same old, is it obscene, does it have social value, and all that stuff. So we even kind of promoted it as that, and this is in '86. And it had done well. It just sold out every show. We got a 5-star review. George Morris, who was, you know, our patron saint, had written this great review of it, and everybody was buzzing about it. And it was doing really well, and then the DA's office, local, called and threatened to shut down the Dobie. So it shut down like a day or two before its run was over. We got about a 5-day run and then lost the last 2 days. And it was a huge, like, what? And it got a lot of, it was written up in the papers and it was a thing, but it was just under threat of arrest, film shut down. So everybody who didn't see it certainly knew about it. So I thought, okay, 2 years later, let's fucking bring Salo back and just dare him to arrest us. We could use the publicity, and we really needed the money too. So it was in 35 millimeter. So Clark, Lee Daniel, and I, we went to San Antonio, because we showed everything in 16 millimeter. Went and got a 35 millimeter kind of portable projector, which there's not a lot of those. But so we had to do one reel change, but we could put the whole film. And there's one print of that, and it's Alberto Grimaldi, the producer's lawyer in New York, had the print. And we were showing the same print we showed at the Adobe 2 years before. But we did kind of an underground campaign, and I actually called the county prosecutor, whoever he was, and I just warned him. Because at the time, he had notoriously not seen the film. He had just heard a description, like, oh, making kids do this stuff, and the disgusting things. It sounds bad. And he just sounded bad to him, so he threatened. But I called him and just had a conversation with him and told him, hey, I'm going to show this film, and I invite you to come see it. It's not, I was kind of talking the merits of it. And he was like, well, I'll tell you what, this call never happened, but if I hear about it in the same way, I might have to do something. I said, okay, well, we'll see. And we just kind of did it right by day or two or three, and we showed it. We were going to just show it for a week, because we usually show it on the weekends, but like, God, we really, we charged a little more money, we got full houses, and we were showing it over and over and kind of making up for all our losses. And it worked. A couple articles, film banned in 1986, showing again. And I remember they called him, and he said he wasn't aware. I saw a quote in the paper, he wasn't aware the film was shot. It's the first thing he's heard about it. So I'm like, I like this guy. But yeah, so it wasn't the same kind of controversy, but it was just enough to be selling out the show every night, or once or twice a night we were showing it. And then we were just about to break even. I think we needed this, it was a Sunday night, it was the last showing. And we had made back our losses, and I was feeling pretty good. I was downstairs, we had gotten it going. I left the projection booth, and a friend of mine comes running down and said, hey, the film stopped, the projector broke. And so on the last night, it was like, oh shit. We had 2 screenings, and we needed that, whatever extra $700-800 was really counting on it. And the projector just broke. I remember handing back people's money. It was just like, say everybody paid $4, giving back $4, and it was just bizarre to have to hand back money and then cancel the next screening. I was just like, but somehow in the exchange we made a little money. So the D and Lee and we just went to some bar, and that was it I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take the summer off. I'm not showing one fucking movie this whole summer. I'm going to New York. And yeah, I remember we just took a little time off and regrouped, but that was the spring of '88. I'll never forget it. It was crazy.
You were filming that, right? All right, good.
Oh,
of course.
It's like evidence and confession. I don't know.
Of course, that's my whole purpose for being over here.
We always, what's that?
That's my whole purpose for always being right here.
Yeah,
She works for the DA.
I've forgotten. I think he's retired that time. But I think we paid our 35% to the distributor. We were happy. We made a deal with them.
Some things never change.
Yeah, 35%, but we did well. Good old controversy.
So if you're not an AFS member, what do you not want to be? You want to be part of this tradition, right? This kind of heritage.
Drunken tradition of
this outlaw, like film-loving heritage. That's us, man.
Yeah, but yeah, that space we had it till the early 90s. We called it Austin Media Arts, and it was just a part of the film side. We did performance art, had shows up. It was just Dee, who I mentioned, she was a filmmaker. She loved movies, but she was also kind of an art student. So a lot of installations, a lot of projectors, with loops and mirrors, and it was a crazy, wonderful time. So it was kind of film art. We were just kind of living it. It was just one kind of continuous place. We ended up, I remember filmed a scene in Slacker up there, and by, I think 91, 90, 91, we were kind of out of there. Art, who had been so generous, he's like, well, can you please start paying some rent? You know, we've been there 2 or 3 years. I'm like, no, we can't even afford $100 a month. So that was the end of us having our own space for that era. But it was always a goal, but it was tough. It was kind of like, if you're gonna have a theater, it's like being in business. You gotta do all these taxes. It was just a full-time job that I didn't really, it was very taxing. It was like, yeah, it was tough.
But each and every one of the screenings, all those memories are like so important for the people that were there, and like.
Yeah, so all 3 people who were at that screening of David Holtzman's Diary or whatever, it was. I still see people to this day who I run into are old friends. It's very special. Yeah.
By the way, that reminds me, I should call, we're playing Tom at the Farm tomorrow night and Sunday night. I should call the DEA ahead of time and say,
yeah,
bust this thing, man.
Don't know. Yeah, we need some publicity.
So we've gone off on an incredibly great tangent, actually. So we've kind of gotten away from the film. I wonder if we have like another, one other terrific contribution about the film we just saw.
Ottinger.
She's still making documentaries. She's in her 70s now.
Yeah.
She still hustles a film together.
Long list, yeah, documentaries. I mean, yeah. There was a film a few years, I think it came out in '87. It was a kind of an omnibus film called 7 Women, 7 Sins. Anybody ever seen that? Chantal Ackerman had a piece she did. I know Maxie Cohen had a documentary piece we've shown over the years called Anger. So the films were shorts, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes each, and then it was this, each director took on a sin, one of the sins. Maxie's was about anger. I remember Chantal Ackerman's was sloth. I forget what Ottinger's was. I saw it once a long time ago, but it kind of exists in pieces too. That'd be an interesting film to get a hold of. I don't know if it's probably with Women Make Movies.
Maybe, yeah, I'll check it.
They have it. So,
we're actually talking about finding her movie Freak Orlando and doing possibly a screening of that in the spring.
Oh, great.
It's a little behind the scenes.
Cool. Yeah. It was a great time. You get a sense of just the possibilities. I was kind of watching it, and I was like, are people still making movies like this? I hope so, but maybe we don't get to see them. But I hope so. I don't know. Times change. And,
Duke of Burgundy.
you know, a film who's maybe coming as close, a little bit close to this, is our own dear Austin expat, Athena Sangari, Rahil.
Yeah.
Everybody see Attenborough? Or they kind of these set piece things are, where it can kind of exist outside of a narrative. There'll be a whole scene that just loosely ties in to what you see as the narrative thread. A character will be like the Bavarian sausage and sauerkraut yodeling scene. That's just there. And then at the very end, here she comes and grabs it. But that's her only relation to that scene. That's pretty hilarious. I think that's kind of great. She's like, I want to do a scene about that. Yodeling and those weird people. It's very, that's not Berlin. That's like, she's making fun, as far as I can tell, German, of another region of the country, that, whatever. But that doesn't mean they don't have that in Berlin, a restaurant or something like that. But I think she's making a lot of fun of that.
It'd be like if you're in Austin and you're making fun of people in Tulsa, Oklahoma or something.
Right. Yeah, or at least East Texas or something, yeah. Those hicks over there, not us.
So next week, New York Place.
Yes. We got to show a musical, right? And we had a musical series. I mean, we've shown a lot of musicals over the years, but that was one I really just want to revisit. I love New York. I think it's completely underrated. It came out in a weird time, but it's just such a treat to see it on film. It's had a very interesting history, kind of a bomb at the time. I first saw it in '81. It came out in '77, and they kind of did a re-release of it, kind of in an art house way. They had cut the film I think Scorsese had agreed to cut like the main music sequence in the end because it was running long. The film was tested, all the things, but he agreed. The studio didn't do it. He agreed to cut it, but there was this kind of truncated version that also didn't do well. So once they did the complete version 4 years later, and that's what we'll be watching. And as far as I know, that's the only version that exists now. But there had been this truncated, unfortunate, like there's this incredible musical number at the end. It tells a story. It's like a film within a film. So that's a big part of it. But anyway, I love it. I think it's just a modern musical. Minnelli, never been better. De Niro, spent a year, training on. He's kind of like Jake LaMotta's musical cousin or brother, evil twin. If you know this movie, it's intense. It's an intense kind of backstage. They're musicians, so it's not like they're not like jumping on tables and dancing. They're both musicians. She's a great singer, a little kind of a pop singer of the time, and he's kind of a, hep cat saxophone player who starts off in the big band era, and then it's segueing into bebop. He's a little too cool for school, and they have this intense love affair, and she's a little more popular than him. It's really fascinating, very complex relationships, very adult, and it's funny, and but more than anything, it's this strange, coming from the guy who just did Taxi Driver, it's this beautiful homage to the Hollywood musical, on stages, and it's set on sound stages, and the artifice of it is up front. It's not trying to, as realistic as it is, it's also kind of it's loving old Hollywood musicals. So it's a lot of things, but I do think it's very beautiful and very cinema loving, cinema literate, whatever you want to call it, and completely out of time, completely. In the year of Saturday Night Fever, you couldn't get farther from, of the moment hipness of the 70s than to make a big band era musical from the 40s. Like
it's
that was
one of those movies.
So far your grandparents' music or whatever. I mean, geez. No one really wanted to see that at the time.
That's kind of a tradition of like the movies that nobody was asking for this.
Yeah, like how does it exist? Well, you had De Niro, you had Minnelli. Sounds good on paper. You have Scorsese, it's the people, it's a great lineup, and I don't know, I just love it. So, but I haven't seen it in a while, so.
Well, most people, you don't get a lot of chances to see New York on 35 millimeter on the big screen, so.
No.
Suffice to say, be there.
Yeah, please be here.
Yeah.
You won't regret it. It's if you haven't seen it, or if you is it time to see it again? It's cool. It's cool.
So we'll see you next week. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you so much, Rick, for doing this.
Thank you guys for being very special. How fun. Yeah.